Chaps. Do you know what time it is?
S-U-L-L-O-U-T. We got control, we got the right, we got the vision, you lose the sight. We will never stop. What? We got the drop, yeah.
What time is it? Full out. We're live in 5, 6, 7, 8. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Wednesday night edition of Coach's Corner. I am Steve Solberg. I am your host and also the head cheerleading coach at Purdue University, and we have a great one for you tonight. As many of you probably know by now, yesterday, Stunt the Sport and USA Cheer made the announcement that they have been recommended for an NCAA emerging sport status, which we're going to get into. We're going to hear from the people that know really about that is. All I can tell you is it is a huge step for the sport of stunt into becoming a NCAA sanctioned sport, which would be huge for so many cheerleaders out there, cheer athletes, and people looking into going into an NCAA type of event and field. So we're super excited to talk about that today. But let me bring in everybody one by one, just so we know who we got. First, Mark Coleman from Morehead State. Are you there?
What's up, Steve? Excited to be here again.
Awesome. Thank you. Ben Schreiber, Ohio State. How are you, bud?
Doing good. Excited to talk about stunt. Wearing a little throwback T-shirt tonight from the 2014 championship, where one of your guests handily defeated my blue hen. But it was a great experience, and I'm excited for what's coming ahead with stunt.
All right, Tony Nash, Indiana. How are you, bud?
I'm good, Steve. Thanks for having me once again. And I'm actually very thrilled to hear the story about Lindsay beating Ben, because we all like to.
And speaking of, let's bring her in. Lindsay, head cheer coach, Oklahoma State University, the reigning Division I Stunt National Champion coach. Lindsay, first of all, welcome. And second of all, how awesome was it to beat Ben? That must have been great.
Well, yes. What's funny is I have utmost respect for Ben. He has a fabulous coaching record, and I speak very highly of him, even though he does coach at that one school. But yeah, no, of course I love winning, so it was great.
For those of you that do not, Lindsay was my first ever full-out chat interview, which was awesome, and she is a Michigan alum, so obviously that is, it is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's bring in the lady that we are excited to hear from about this whole process of getting stunt to where it is today. Please welcome Lauri Harris from USA Cheer. Lauri, how are you?
Thank you so much for having me. Yay!
Thank you again. As you can tell, Lauri's out in California enjoying the weather. It's still very
sunshine.
And again, I just so excited about the news yesterday about stunt. It is huge. We'll talk to Lindsay here in a bit. Obviously, being a coach that is very successful in that, and kind of what her thoughts are in terms of the progression of stunt for her program. But Lauri, kind of start off from the beginning. Like, for those that do not know much about it, what is stunt? How did it kind of come to fruition, and kind of just the avenues you had to take to get it to where it is today?
Okay, well, again, about 10 years ago, there's always been this big, I'll even actually go back further. There's always been this whole conversation, right? Is cheerleading a sport? It's been the age-old, question. And you have on either side of that coin, really what people are really asking for is they really want the recognition for the athletes that cheerleaders are. And I've always said, what we kind of have derived after all the conversations is cheerleading is more than a sport. They do so much more. They might compete and they have amazing skills and they're athletes, but they're also cheering on sports, and they're being ambassadors of their universities, and they're out representing their community. So they're doing so much more than that. So to kind of put it in a box was just not something that a lot of states and organizations across the country have tried to find this little sport box for it. And what we kept finding is when you do that come a lot of restrictions and a lot of things that unintended consequences. The whole point in the beginning was with everyone's intentions are always, I think, in the right place of recognizing athletes, but then inadvertently you end up putting restrictions around it. So it really kind of came up of there clearly is a need after that Quinnipiac Act, years ago when the cheerleaders were counting for Title IX and in the competitive format. And we know if you're familiar with the history there, went and found that the Supreme Court had said it was not a sport and didn't count for Title IX. So really kind of came to USA Cheer of being, there needs to be a sport that is derived from cheer, but that is designed specifically as a sport. So 10 years ago, a group got together and they literally, put pen to paper and marked things out, and really just taking the athletic skills of cheerleading and putting it into a 4-quarter game format with a head-to-head component, and which meets all the requirements for Title IX. So that's where that started, and they got a couple teams together about 10 years ago, literally 10 years ago this year, and started, introducing it at the college level, and which is out there in Daytona. And the format has evolved over these 10 years, but that's where it first started. And then 2 years later, we started introducing it at the high school level. And so here we are now. Fast forward, we've had over 100 different colleges play stunt over those 10 years. And this season alone, we had 40 colleges, and we're set for about, I think, 52 right now for the 2021 season that will be playing some version, whether it's club or as a varsity sport for stunt.
So I don't think people realize just the hoops that you have to go through about Title IX and the laws and all the restrictions. Can you just go into a little bit just about some of the difficulties or just the hoops that you really didn't foresee happening? That, I mean, I know, like you said, it's been almost 10 years and finally getting the recommendation for emerging sport. I mean, can you talk about maybe some of the hoops and kind of the battles that you came across that you weren't expecting?
Yeah, so, and I'm not a Title IX expert by any means, but what we have learned from, kind of developing and going through the years of learning how to best structure it and what those regulations are around it is there just needs to be an equitable, opportunities for student athletes at the collegiate level and at the high school level as well, as making sure that if your student population at your, school is 60% male and, 40% female, then you want to make sure that your sports are equitable. If they're, 50 and 50, then you want to make sure that you have equal opportunities for the female athletes as much as the male athletes. So with that, which, Title IX was, I think, introduced back in the 1970s, is that it really changed the landscape of what was available. And this is not just having a sport for a female, it's also making sure that there's equitable opportunities for them with scholarships, with their practice facilities, with everything has to be they have to have equal, accessibility. So they're not getting you get 2 hours of practice in the back gym when the male sport gets the prime gym for 5 hours. There needs to be, training, and all of that is taken into consideration when you're looking at facilities, finances, scholarships, trainers, all of that goes into the Title IX. And that's really, really important because that puts a heavy financial burden on a lot of schools to make sure that they are doing everything properly to make sure it's equal across the board.
Ben, I know that you had a couple things that you wanted to bring up to Lauri. What was kind of your first question? Oh, Ben, you're muted, bud.
I like it.
Yep, my bad. First, Lauri, congratulations. I know you've been working a lot on this, and it's a huge recognition, a huge step forward for stunt. If you don't mind, just kind of share the next steps, how the different divisions operate and kind of, the future timeline. Obviously, this is a huge first step, but there's a lot of things that still need to happen to get this, kind of to the ultimate goal. So if you don't mind sharing kind of that timeline.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'll take a small step back and just kind of mention, so we have applied with to the NCAA with the CWA, which is the Committee on Women's Athletics. And we've done this for a few years in a row. They had a moratorium for a few years where they actually put just a pause on their emerging sport, and that allowed us to really just kind of gain momentum and keep our programs engaged. And then this last year, we were able to just resubmit our application. And what their job is to look for sports that they can basically kind of, the emerging sport process is like a stepping stone. So the goal is to get a sport to be a championship sport, whether that's, typically that's 40 varsity programs with the NCAA that's sponsoring it as a varsity sport. If it's D3, it could be 28. So it's hard to just go from 0 to 40, right? And so they have created the space for sports to basically get to that next level, and then they give them 10 years to work towards getting to that championship status. So we're really needing to get that recommendation to at least be in the ring, to at least be on the table, to at least be an option for universities to be able to say, we want now to keep adding this and add more programs to get to that championship status. So the next step, now that we have gotten their recommendation, which is for all 3 divisions, 1, 2, and 3, the next step is this next year is our proposal, and our sport will go to each of the divisions. The votes are typically at the convention, which is in January. Division 2 and 3 will vote there. And then Division 1 sometimes normally votes a little bit after that in April. The timeline might be a little bit different this year with everything going on with COVID, but that's just their typical cycle. And so we'll work with divisions and conferences this fall and just informing them about all the benefits of what it would look like for them to consider having a stunt program at their university. And then they take all their votes from their colleges all the way up to their conferences, and then their conferences bring it to the convention, and they vote there at for Division 1, 2, and 3. And then even once a division says, yes, we want to go ahead and do this for Division 2. For example, Division 2 could say yes, and Division 1 could say no, or Division 2 and 3 could both say no, and one could say yes. It's not an all or nothing. So they're each division is individual. But even then, if say Division 2 said, yes, we want to go ahead and sponsor this for our division, not every school has to add it. They still have the option of adding it. Or even if the division doesn't sponsor it, a school could still have it. But it definitely helps to have that seal of approval and that recognition and kind of that, voice of confidence that you kind of need to help, with the growth that we're trying to get to.
Louis, quick follow-up question to that. When these, emerging sports, to kind of for that next step, do you know the exact, I don't really know how to word this, like how many, is there a set number of sports that they will allow? Is it unlimited? Is it just kind of based on, what the people think about it during the vote?
Yeah, so right now there's multiple sports that are in the emerging sport process right now. For example, like equestrian, rugby, I believe, is in that process. They have been for a few years. There was a couple sports that were voted in this last year, acro and tumbling and wrestling. So they're now in that first phase. And so then if we get voted in, then there'll probably be, I think, between 5 and 7 sports that are in that emerging sport process. There's not a limit. There's not a minimum, maximum. Beach volleyball was, I think, the more recent one that went through that whole process. And now they actually, they went through that. I think it took about 8 years or so to them to get through to becoming an NCAA championship sport. And they've had a lot of success with that. So there have been emerging sports that go in through that process and then they're pulled out. So if you don't meet the criteria and you're not growing and things like that, then it's not a guarantee. You have to keep working towards adding institutions of your sport in order to stay in that process.
Last question, is there like a maximum time that you can be in emerging sport before you kind of get, removed, like, no, this isn't going to happen? You said beach volleyball was in there for 8 years.
Yeah, I think it's 10 years. You have like 10 years to basically either show, I think, and there are some sports that have been longer than 10 years, but they were basically showing that they were making still improvements. So they were showing growth. So it's approximately, their standard is 10. We are hoping to get to our championship status within 3 to 5 years.
Perfect. Thank you.
So in terms of my question, which we kind of chatted about earlier, was, acro tumbling. People have heard about acro tumbling. Acro tumbling did get emerging sports status this past year. And I'll just be very transparent and honest. When it happened, I was like, man, there's no way stunt's going to get it now. I just thought that maybe they were too close in terms of, what they can provide and what they are. So again, I was just so happy and excited when I heard that stunt got it. I mean, do you mind? Could you just talk real quick about kind of the differences between stunt and acro tumbling and kind of how both were able to get to where they are now?
Yeah, I definitely I don't know a ton about acro and tumbling, so I don't want to speak to their sport in particular, but I will tell you that we heard a lot of that same thing too. It was like, oh, they're almost the same thing. It's one or the other. We were very much informed by the committee, and they assured us that it was not one or the other. We're two different sports. They were looking at our applications completely side by side. We both could have got in. Neither one of us could have got in. Same with wrestling. Same with any of these other sports. So it was something that we felt really comfortable with, that this was something that our sport is different. It's derived from cheer. Acro and tumbling is, from acro and tumbling, hence the name. So there are some small similarities, but I would see those similarities just like other sports, whether it's soccer and lacrosse or, swimming and water polo. I mean, beach volleyball and volleyball. There's a lot of similarities in things, but they're not necessarily, they're still different sports. Some people say soccer and football, again, you're running, there's a ball, there's certain things that are similar there, but with acro and tumbling, our sport is head to head. So it's a game format. It moves quickly through. The scoring is pretty subjective, and they are head to head skills, compulsory routines, and they're derived all from cheer skills. Whereas the acro and tumbling, from my knowledge, is more based upon tumbling and then the specific techniques used in acro. So for us, I know that we just felt like ours has we don't need as many elite gymnasts in stunt. Tumbling is definitely a whole quarter that is devoted to that. But when you're looking at your top elite gymnasts, you might need to recruit as a coach like 3 or 4, and Lindsay could probably speak to that a little more, where acro and tumbling might need a little bit deeper in their roster of like some elite gymnasts.
Tony, I know that you had a couple questions for Lauri.
Awesome. And Louis, mine's I echo Ben. Congratulations. That's fantastic. That's great news for the industry. And as many of the viewers know, that Louis is the executive director of USA Cheer. I work with the U.S. national teams, and I wanted to ask, in 2016, obviously the IOC gave us the provisional recognition for IOC. Does that recognition and the NCAA, do they kind of help each other? I mean, will it help the IOC with the NCAA emerging sport, or vice versa?
Yeah, thank you for that. They're actually, no, they are two separate things. Definitely having more recognition on the national scale never hurts anything that we're working towards, but they're two completely different, formats. Stunt is just in the United States. Even though I'm getting requests now from around the world, but it's just in the United States, and something that we're just spending a lot of time to build the base of it. It's a lot of work and a lot of time to get the interest to really grow at the grassroots and to really get that going. The IOC is in particular for, more of the competitive cheer version, which is we're seeing your 2.5 minute routine that has been done for years and years and is done in the US and around the world.
Okay. I was curious, once you and I had talked about this, but I was just curious because if the sport in college, that has to look appealing to the IOC, or vice versa for the IOC, it's something that we'd want to bring in. So I was just curious on if they went hand in hand or.
Yeah, I mean, definitely anytime you get some good recognition like this, it definitely helps bolster, I think, everything that we're trying to do. But there are two different initiatives for sure.
Well, we have the reigning Division I national champion stunt coach here with us, Lindsay. First of all, welcome again, and tell what was your reaction to hearing about stunt getting the recommendation for emerging sport status? And I mean, obviously it's only been a day, so it's still obviously just news, but I mean, kind of just your initial thoughts about what it could potentially do for you and your program, and really the stunt, the aspects of stunt overall.
Yeah. So Louis and the rest of the USA, cheer and stunt officials basically included all of us college coaches on a call. And, we're thinking we're getting some updates and just being told some, random stuff. And then she threw it out there. And I think there was a moment of disbelief from all of us for just a second. There was some tears from some people. It's been a long process. I was thinking back through it. So my first stunt exposure was when I was finishing up as an athlete, and basically stunt was just getting started. We were going to try to play just a scrimmage, and we were playing University of Central Oklahoma. And Leroy was coaching the national team that year. And so he was going to be gone when we were doing it. And so I filled in as coach, and it's kind of a, coincidental story that here I was coaching the stunt team. I had no idea what I was doing. We kind of had it, staged out. We knew what routines we were going to do and everything. But way back then, the fourth quarter was a traditional, college nationals routine. So that was interesting. And so it's really evolved, and it's been a long time coming, and it's really exciting. It's exciting for the kids that have been putting in the time doing this to finally get that recognition. Unfortunately, when you're looking at kind of what's going on with the COVID, there are a lot of budget concerns across the United States for a lot of different universities. So I don't see anything necessarily changing at Oklahoma State in this next year just for those budgetary reasons. But our administration has been super supportive of us continuing to do so. It's just got to be the right time.
Lindsay, I know for those that really don't understand, again, have never maybe seen a stunt game, or they have never really experienced it. What I really love about it, so actually, I can't remember how, but I remember going down to Louisville about 10 years ago, and I got to meet the infamous Bill Boggs was there, and we learned about this new thing called stunt. And it was awesome. It was a great experience, a great exposure to really see where it started with. But kind of talk about the coaching aspect of stunt and the difference between coaching like a stunt game versus like coaching your nationals team for Oklahoma State.
Well, obviously one helps to prepare the team for the other. So one thing I've noticed since we've started utilizing stunt at the school, or competing in it, I guess I should say, is it's really helped to improve our technique, really focus on the little details and whatnot. But then on the other side, the NCAA team allows us to have maybe a little bit more difficulty and a little bit more experimentation. So we get to choose the skills that we want, which allows us to kind of grow. But that's one of the things that's challenging about stunt. When I coach my team for NCAA, I'm going to choose the skills that they're good at. So I'm going to highlight what they're good at, versus when they do stunt, I have to do the skills that somebody else came up with. And it really can show some weaknesses for teams if that's not something that you excel at. So it's a different challenge. My kids love both of them. I think that, when the time comes to decide which one to do, it's not, it's going to be a tough decision for a lot of them, but stunt has its own excitement to it. You feel like an athlete. And I always say for parents, it's awesome because you get to watch your kid for 45 minutes as part of a game rather than 2 minutes and 15 seconds. And it really just creates some good team, camaraderie and everything.
Mark, I know you had a very interesting question, a question I'm sure a lot of people are wondering about in terms of stunt. Mark, you're muted. You're still muted.
It was,
There we go.
Click the icon. I was wondering if stunt was ever going to be co-ed, and if that was in the plans for the future.
We've had that question quite a bit. It's something where there's so much interest in it, and people from high school and college have asked us, when is there a co-ed version coming out, and is that even something that we would consider? We definitely have talked about it. We've looked at different structures on that. It's just something that this takes so much time and effort to get the sport to be really a strong base of where we want it to be before we try to go off into a different direction. And we just really, really want to make sure this was just our ultimate goal, was to get to this step. And then we still have so much interest at the high school and youth level that's kind of our main priority. But we have some groups that are interested in like doing some co-ed leagues. The thing is you'd have to play other co-ed teams. And so getting enough interest in certain areas, I don't think that'd be a huge problem, but we want to really, make sure that stunt, it has a really strong foundation before we go off into kind of expanding it the other way. But no, it's definitely something that comes up, and it's great to see that co-ed and all girl are both interested in those, in the format.
Again, we are here with Lauri Harris from USA Cheer, Lindsay Bracken, Oklahoma State, talking about stunt and its recommendation to become an emerging sport. Lauri, do you think that because, the cheer community, is very gregarious people, we love hanging out with each other. It's something that, we love to, really kind of bounce ideas off each other and really kind of just feed off each other. Do you think that with stunt becoming possibly an NCAA sport, or definitely getting the emerging sport status, that maybe more cheerleaders are going to be looking into that?
Looking into
doing stunt.
Oh, absolutely.
Or trying stunt. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We have so much interest at the high school level right now. Like I said, nearly 6,000 high school athletes this spring were signed up to play some version of stunt all across the country. And just from our announcement yesterday, we've gotten inquiries from across the country for high school in particular, and some colleges as well. So what we have loved to see is just an additional opportunity. When you get to, I coached in college, and I know all of you guys, it's like there's just only such a small option for them to take those skills that they love to do and still do them at the collegiate level. And so whether you're a sideline program or you're a competitive program, or now we have this option with stunt, it just gives those girls in particular in high school one more opportunity to take that to the college level. And so I think it opens up, whether you're high school cheerleader, all-star cheerleader, a gymnast. We've even had some weightlifters in the weightlifting community that have, kind of really sought out stunt for an opportunity for them. And so for us, it's just been so great to be able to have something that is appealing to so many of the athletes and for this skill set, and that there's an opportunity for them past, high school age.
Lauri, we actually have a really good question here. This is from Ryan Blanford. He's the head cheer coach at the University of Delaware. And it's a good question. Once official, are cheerleaders going to be able to participate in both stunt and cheer, or will the NCAA want to see different athletes on each team? I think that a lot of us coaches may be worried about that, some of the athletes that we may be trying to get to do traditional cheerleading may not want to do, they may want to do stunt only, or vice versa, or whatever it may be. Obviously, like I said, you've just gotten this announcement. So, but do you foresee the possibility of athletes being able to do in some way, shape, or form traditional cheer and stunt?
I've never heard this question before, right, Lindsay? Actually, it's been a big question that we've had, so I'm happy to answer. It's a good question, Ryan. So it has been one of the big questions that was kind of, to be honest, one of the main reasons why we didn't get through last year for the emerging sport status was the NCAA. Again, cheerleading is not. This is a brand new sport. This isn't a female version of a male sport. This is a brand new sport, and cheerleading has a lot of, stereotypes around it and stigma. And there was a lot of hurdles that we had to overcome to be able to really, share what it is that we were trying to accomplish. And their number one concern was the student athlete being protected. And in their mind, a cheerleader at a university is, which we all know, they do so much, right? They're cheering and they're practicing and the basketball, football, and community service. And how could anyone who's a cheerleader also potentially be a member of a sports team? And so their number one priority is to really keep make sure the student athlete experience is protected, and that academics is their number one priority. So I'm not sure I don't want to get too technical, but if you're familiar with CARA hours, and it's the accountable athletic related activity hours, I probably said that wrong, but it's basically how many hours that they're participating that they count, and someone has to keep track of that. And because cheerleading isn't a sport, right, there's no regulations around it. So they were very concerned about the protection of who's going to be looking out for the athlete. So what we did was we went back, we met with all of our programs, and the ultimate goal is more opportunities for females. So the ideal thing is you have your sideline program, you have your competitive, and you have stunt, and they're all separate. However, we know just like in other sports, there are crossover athletes. There's multi-sport athletes who are doing more than one thing. Tons in track and field, tons of the, water polo and swimming, all kinds of examples that we were able to find. And so what we had found is we actually created some legislation for the NCAA to look at that would basically mimic a multi-sport legislation that would protect the athlete and that would keep them to the same amount of regulations if they were a multi-sport athlete. So it basically just said if they were going to cheer a football game in the fall and they had their hours that they had to stay within, that somebody was looking out for that to make sure that they were being taken care of. And so the goal is separation, but I also think like at the D3 level, for example, there are so many multi-sport athletes that are doing 2 or 3 things sometimes at that level. And so to limit someone from not doing something because they want to do it isn't really what the NCAA wants to do either. They want to make sure that if somebody wants to participate in something, that we give them that opportunity to do it in a safe environment that's good for their academics and their education. And so we were able to work with our coaches association, our advisory board, and the NCAA legislation group to basically come up with something that would protect those particular athletes that were interested in potentially doing both and how that might look working simultaneously together.
Lindsay, from a coach's perspective, how has your experience been with your stunt athletes with your sideline cheerleaders?
So most of my cheerleaders don't cheer games that are on the stunt team. So that's kind of, something that might be unique to us. It's made up of my small co-ed team and they don't typically cheer games. But I think there's a large interest every single year from my large co-ed kids who I don't typically take on my stunt team, wanting to do stunt. So, occasionally I have about 3 of them that fit a specific skill set that I need. And then I also have some individuals that once they get, around me and I've known them for a while, they say, I really don't want to be that super competitive cheerleader anymore, but I really want to keep doing stunt. And so I probably have about, probably the most that I've had is about 8 to 10 athletes that were stunt only athletes for me. And it was just, they were the right fit. They had the interest. So it's most of the time the kids want to do everything, and it's up to us to tell them, wait a minute, it's, you need to take a step back. You need to realize you only have so much time in a day, and it's going to be difficult. But most of the time they really want to do it all. And stunt has a roster of 36 females, and I don't have problems filling that roster at all. In fact, I have to sometimes tell people, sorry, I don't have a spot for you, which is unfortunate.
So, now that stunt has made some huge news, and I think that even if people weren't interested or had no idea about it, I think that they're going to start looking into it now because, they just want to know, like, what is this thing? What can we do? I know, Mark, you had a question you want to bring up to Lauri.
Yeah. So if there's coaches that are listening or, they're interested in starting stunt, like what's the first step? Like, who do they need to reach out to? Where do they go?
Perfect. So you can go to stuntthesport.org, and right on our website, actually, we have a whole FAQ about what the emerging sport mean and what the announcement means about a lot of the big questions that everyone has. It's kind of right there on our main page. We also have a great getting started guide, and it kind of walks you through, like, there's a game on there that you can watch that was from our national championship last year from start to finish. So you can really see it's with Alma College and OBU. It was a really close game. It was a great, it's a great view of what, a championship game kind of looked like and how it went back and forth, and a lot of range in the skills there. There's also a promo video that kind of gives you a little 5-minute version of what stunt is and how it works. And then we have, again, a step-by-step guide on how you can get started learning about stunt. And then we have a contact form. And so if you fill that out, then one of our staff members will get back to you and get you connected to one of our regional directors. And also our coaches group has been amazing. Lindsay's been on our advisory board since pretty much as long as I've been around. And we have a lot of coaches, and they're really into really willing and able to mentor all of our new coaches. We have had so much, really the reason why we're so successful is because everyone they embrace each other and help them, and then they beat them like Lindsay did to Ben. Sorry, Ben.
Shots fired.
Oh, that was gold. Oh,
I
Lauri,
asked Louis to get that in there, you know.
Hey, I will say this: we got our butts kicked, but the entire experience is something that I really, really enjoy when I was a coach at University of Delaware. We started the all-girl team my third out of my fifth year, and then our second year being able to get there to the Final Four, to the championship, was a huge accomplishment, a huge honor, and just seeing the level that these teams had, that just their skill set really drove the all-girl team to keep growing, even after I left at Delaware. So, I think that those defeats out in Oklahoma City actually still help propel the program. So while it's not the outcome we wanted, I definitely think it still helped the program, on that upward trajectory. So I'm not going to say thank you, but it was a fun experience.
But that's just to echo. I mean, we just have a lot of great coaches, like the ones who are on here, and our coaches have really embraced, and they're really great at educating. We also have a lot of great getting started guides, new coaches guides. We do have a coaches summit that we're doing June 27th. It was in Dallas, but we're doing it virtual now. And it's geared towards all coaches for a wide range of topics, but we'll be having a really big section on college recruiting, and with an emphasis on stunt too, if you're looking for doing like that NCAA eligibility, because this is the one thing with stunt, you have to follow all the NCAA regulations. And that's something new and different that cheerleaders aren't used to. So we'll be helping to educate on that front. And again, I want to put a plug in for our combines, which we have been very successful in helping college coaches connect with high school athletes. So we have 7 this year. And we're hoping that they all should make. We do have backup plans for limited, instruction, I guess you should say, if need be. But right now they're from Delaware to Ohio, West Georgia, Texas, Oklahoma, and California. So those are on our website. If you guys haven't signed up for, or if you're listening, definitely sign your college up. They're free for colleges to attend. And we really target, especially now more than ever, these athletes want to connect because they didn't get a chance to a lot this spring. So we're really hoping to be able to just get colleges and athletes to talk in person, show their skills, and really be able to find the right fit for them, for their academics and for their athleticism, whether it's sideline, competitive, and now stunt. And that's really what this is about. I know some people are always worried when something new comes in, is this going to take away from something else? It's kind of like that when All-Star came in years ago. I remember very vividly, like, oh no, this is going to take away from high school cheerleading. Guess what? High school cheerleading is doing great. All-Star is doing fantastic. We have, college. There's so many opportunities. And so that's the goal for us, is just to be able to find, not everyone likes everything. And some people really, like Lindsay just said, some of her kids really love stunt, but then some really want to be competitive, and some just want to cheer at a football game. And so for us, I feel like our job at the governing body and being advocates of the industry is to just give as many opportunities for the kids to be able to do something that they love to do. And I will echo what Lindsay said too, is that is what we have seen. Back to Ryan's question earlier, is some people think like you have to be on the cheer team to be on the stunt team. You don't. The athletes typically want to. They want to do both. And so it's our job as, the administrators and the coaches, like she said, looking out for them to be able to keep that boundary for them, to keep their academics high priority. But if we can put a great environment for them to be able to do multiple things, then they, as you guys know, you can only do this for so long. And we want to make sure we're giving them, great opportunities to have a lot of fun and excel at their athleticism and the things that they're really good at. And then their next step is the national team. Right, Tony?
Yeah, but you said that you can only do it so long. Didn't we just start like a Masters division. So now we've just extended that deadline.
Perfect. You guys are all welcome on the Masters team.
That's short for old.
It's non-tumble, right?
Mark and I are front spots for sure.
It's a non-tumble division, right?
We all get one tumbling, just like one back hamstring.
Hey, I'm great at mat talk.
I was going to add into that. Actually, we have a college stunt coaches association as well that we really started to drive home this year and really get involved and be a unified voice of coaches. So that's been a great resource, I think, for a lot of new coaches, just to have a place to go and be like, is anybody else struggling with this, certain routine? There's been tips shared about how to drill the different skills. And, Ben was speaking, it's funny, I don't remember a lot of details from a lot of games. I try to focus on making sure my athletes are performing to the best of their ability. So whether it was a close game or it was a, blowout, I just remember how did my team perform for the most part. But there is the great thing about stunt is that you can really feel a lot of success even in a loss. Mm-hmm. Because even if you lose, you have multiple routines that you're individually performing better than you've ever performed, or you're winning those routines. And so, sometimes I think in the cheer world, we get so focused on win, win, win. And this takes it a step back where there really are great opportunities for success, even without, that win at the end of the game.
Totally agree.
Hey, Lindsay, as obviously we talked about how how to get into stunt. Obviously, since you're an active coach, what do you feel is like the time requirements for like in season, out of season? How much time are you spending? How much time are these athletes spending, preparing?
So that's going to depend on the team. I'm very blessed that I have some very talented athletes. So there are some of the lower level routines that my athletes, can run one time, and we can hit all of the skills. Some of the upper level routines obviously take a little bit more time to master, and it just kind of depends. The season, timing will change with official NCAA, emerging sports status. But we are able to do it as we run it simultaneously with stunt. Now, one thing that I tell coaches as they get started, the first year of stunt absolutely sucks because the kids don't get it. So you're like, you have to walk like this. You have to move like this. No, you dip on 5. You do not dip on 4. You dip on 5. Are you clear? And they just don't understand it. And then they play their first game and they get it. And then all of a sudden, the next year, you have all of these veterans that understand it, and it just makes it so much easier. As a coach, it takes a little bit of extra time just to kind of plan out who's going to be in the routines. Each coach has their own strategy. I try to spread the wealth as much as I can just so that I don't overutilize athletes to prevent fatigue, and then if an injury happens or something. So just kind of planning that out. But we've gotten to the point where I tell the kids, hey, you're in this routine, and they learn it on their own and then come into practice. Early on, if I would have asked them to do that, they wouldn't have realized how serious I was about that. And so then it took more practice time to teach the actual routines.
I didn't even think about in terms of like, I go through it every year. You have especially a male. A male has never competed before, never been on mat. They don't understand it. But once they finally get it, or they at least compete that first time, they get it. Then they'll finally understand why you have to do it the way you do it and things like that. That's definitely something I wouldn't even have thought of in regards to like preparing a stunt team. Ben, from your experience with Delaware, would you agree with that? Was that kind of a hurdle in terms of just getting the athletes to understand it, first of all?
Totally. It's while the skills themselves, some of them are, the same skills that you would put in a regular cheer routine, how you go about doing it is totally different. And just like Lindsay said, until a coach and a team plays that first game, there's still like kind of that uncertainty, but then like that light bulb goes off, and then the team is even, whether you win or lose, I feel that the kids are more excited because they understand it then. I think also a unique thing is, you're used to in a traditional routine of like working on the skills, thinking, you're creating your own routine, and, maybe you get your music first and then build your routine off music, or maybe, I think most people have their routine and then put the music behind that. This is different because you have a routine with music and you're almost learning it backwards. So it's a unique way of coaching it. It's a unique way of training it. And there's just a lot of different strategies that are also involved in the games. I mean, I know that, at certain games, especially if you're at a tournament and you might see a team struggle with a certain routine. Maybe it's an elite level routine, or maybe it's one of the lower level routines. Maybe it's a game before you, or maybe you're just watching that team warm up. And there's going to be some strategy of, okay, if we're behind, what routine are we going to call? Because I think at least back in 2014, there's like 5 or 6 routines per quarter. Louis or Lindsay could, confirm that. But so there's the strategy involved of what you're going to call if you have possession. So there's so many different factors that are so similar to a different kind of game in another sport. And I think that's what's so special. It combines the athleticism of cheerleading, the cheer skills, with the strategy of a different sport. You're combining it all together, which is just a really cool concept.
I know that, in regards to when stunt actually is, growing and becoming more, closer to becoming an NCAA sport. I mean, I think we can all agree that I think, us coaches have now, a different avenue we can look into, or things that we can look into in regards to, what that looks like for us. Mark, I know Moorhead was, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Moorhead Louisville from that very, very first stunt match I ever saw down in Louisville. I believe it was Moorhead Louisville. I know Moorhead did it for a little bit, hasn't. I mean, is that something that you would maybe consider at Moorhead if obviously everything works out and, in the future looks bright in terms of the COVID situation and everything like that?
Yeah, no, I mean, kind of what other people have talked about it. I mean, it's increasing opportunities for our athletes to compete. And I think that's awesome. The way that from what I understand, I've only watched a couple of demo stunt games and then seen some highlights online, but I don't think there's a limit to how many people you can have that are active, and you can utilize many more people, and you can play to their strengths. And if you've got people that are really strong stunters, with the UCA routines, we need everyone to be very well balanced, and they need to be able to do tumbling and stunning. And it seems like in this format, you could utilize strengths a little bit easier and give opportunities to people that wouldn't, normally get an opportunity to compete at Moorhead State. And so there's a lot of things I like about it. The biggest thing for me would just be like, it would be a lot more work. and I know that you and I talked about, it would just extend the season, but it's something that, I would have to, take to the administration and, worry about budgets and things, but it's definitely something I'm interested in. And it would be cool to get Moorhead back in it, because I know I think we did it the first year that it was offered.
Tony, did you have something you wanted to add?
Oh, yeah. I thought you were doing a commercial break, Steve.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I thought you wanted to go first. No, I can do my commercial break next if you'd like me to.
That's okay. Ding, ding, aw. And this is for Lindsay or Louis, either. So what's next? I mean, so Lindsay, do you go to your athletic department and say, hey, we got emergency sports status from the NCAA, or is this something that they discover on their own? Are they aware, or what happens at that level?
Knowing that my athletic directors have had conversations with me about it every single, I mean, this has been a routine conversation every year. So the second that I got the news, knowing that they weren't going to leak it out to everybody, I went ahead and emailed them, and I informed them that, hey, this is the next step, or here's where we're at. And I said, I understand, budget concerns right now, but I want you to keep informed. That's where we're moving. So for me particularly, I think that communication, happened immediately, and I think most people probably did. Louis can kind of speak as far as, from USA Cheer and stunt, kind of the next step that way.
Yeah. So right now we have nearly 40 programs, and not every program is a varsity program. We also have club, and that's one of the unique things is that we have been able to grow so rapidly, because most sports that get to that sport status under athletics starts at the club level. So it's a lot easier for a university to then say, hey, we're going to add this program, and guess what? We already have a club program on our campus, and we'll start with that, or they might start fresh. But from the history of sports in general, they normally, I know lacrosse has been really a big thing in the last 5 to 10 years in particular. It's really kind of just came out here in the West, and most of it was club at the beginning, and then now schools are adopting it as a sport. So we have, if a school wants to come in, if Moorhead wants to come and participate, they don't have to be a varsity sport their first year. They could choose to be just a club sport and make it a limited schedule and a limited involvement. So certain colleges can stay as club for a couple of years, but we're hoping that a lot more of those club programs will transition now to varsity status. We have a program in California, Bakersfield, that they're actually starting a club program next year, and then they're transitioning to varsity in 2022. We do envision with this COVID thing that there will be the budget constraints, and so we have talked to a few programs that have already said we're doing this, but we're going to start in 2022 for our fiscal budget. But they're going to start now and kind of looking next year and getting a coach and starting their recruiting. So whatever involvement a team is interested in, going full varsity or being a club, we work with every single one of them, and we're hopeful that we would like them to go varsity right off the bat. That helps our overall NCAA movement, but we have a place for a club as well, which is unique to stunt to be able to offer both.
So we have about 10 minutes here left. If you have any questions, if you're watching live right now, we've had some great viewership. If you have any questions, go to the comments tab and start typing up some questions. We are happy to answer them. Again, we have Lauri Harris here with USA Cheer, Lindsay Bracken from Oklahoma State, Tony Nash from Indiana, Ben Schreiber from Ohio State, and Mark Coleman from Moorhead State University. But need to do a quick shout out to our sponsor for the show. Our sponsor is Cheer Chalk. Cheer Chalk is a great product. A couple of my guys have used it in the past. You get about 50 uses out of one bottle. So that's one thing right now. It's not just a one and done type of thing. You can get up to about 50 uses out of it. It does improve your grip, especially on hot, sweaty days, things like that. Right now, if you go to cheerchalk.us, there's $5 off. And if you put in the discount code FULLOUT10, you get an additional 10% off. So $5 plus an additional 10% off right now at cheerchalk.us. Head on over there. Thank you again for sponsoring tonight's show to Cheer Chalk. So again, cheerchalk.us. Put in the discount code FULLOUT10. I know that we got a couple more questions to hear that I want to ask, but I do have one thing that I wanted to go ask real quick for Lauri. Is I see that USA Cheer is having these great recruitment clinics, and started branching out on that. Could you just talk about kind of what those clinics entail? We kind of had that as a topic a couple weeks ago, but since you're here, we'd love to hear from you about the USA Cheer clinics and what they entail, and kind of the athletes that you're looking to get at these clinics.
Yeah, so the combines have been super successful. We're going into our third year now. We started with just 2. Last year we had 5, and this year we'll have 7. And we just found it a really great kind of neutral spot where we can kind of get to the different regions in the country, bring in the colleges. They set up their tables, and we have a whole packet for all the athletes when they come in about all the different colleges and what they offer. And then we have the athlete, all their information. And they're really, it's like a tryout, to be honest. They literally treat it. They have time with the coaches, but then they literally go one at a time. They do their jumps and their tumbling. They do their partner stunts. They do their tumbling. Or I think I said that. They're running, tumbling as well. And then we have Q&A time. We do a panel discussion with the coaches. And then we have time where they can go and meet and greet with the coaches directly. And it's been, we give all the coaches that attend the full roster of all the contact information of all the athletes so they can get in touch with them and really, communicate with them. We do also partner with Captain U, and they have a great profile that then they're able to connect. And as a college coach, you can really keep up with who you're trying to now more than ever get your athletes kind of committed. And if you're looking for a certain type of an athlete, you can search on there by their skills. You can search on there by they want stunt only, or they want to compete, or they only want sideline, or they don't have tumbling, or they have these certain particular partner stunt skills. So that's really helping to, especially now more than ever, this virtual, to have that profile available for coaches to access. So we're encouraging that. And it just is an additional way for cheerleaders to see what's outside of maybe thoughts that they didn't originally think about. We had a couple of athletes here in California that attended our first one, and they ended up signing to like back east colleges who came out to our combine, and they said they never would have considered those schools. But when you get in front of them and you share what you have to offer, and they get a glimpse into that, and then you see the coach and you talk to the coach and there's a connection there, it has been invaluable than just trying to just do it just on social media. So we are really proud to be able to offer those and to be that connection piece between high school athletes and college coaches.
Louie, I think that you're totally right. Those combines, especially that they're all around the country, have been fantastic. I was able to attend 3 of them last year, the one in Ohio and then the 2 that were out in California that worked with our schedule. And I made some great connections, all the way out in California, that some people I'm still connecting with. And actually at the clinic last year, the combine last year in Ohio, made a connection with a female that we actually signed for next year's team at Ohio State. So they've been fantastic for us. So I would definitely plug any athletes that are watching and or coaches of programs. Try your best to get to one of those, because there's going to be so many different types of programs that you're going to be able to see, just like Louie said, with stunt teams, non-competitive teams, as well as competitive teams.
Actually, we have a question here from Totsky, and it's kind of in relation to what we were just kind of talking about, the creation of stunt through the club program. And so her question is kind of towards Lindsay, how can we introduce this through the rec avenue on campus or becoming a club team? Can you start with an individual membership, building stunt skills and routines? Like, can you take your cheerleaders to kind of like get ready for it and then maybe look into the club option? I guess, how did you, Lindsay, go into, because for people that do not know, Lindsay's co-ed team is under athletics, but then her all-girl stunt team is a club team. It is not under athletics. So kind of talk about the difference between the both and how, I guess, you created through your rec program.
Yeah, so truthfully, and I think that I need to speak that Oklahoma State has said they want to make sure that they have a certain standard for how they treat their cheerleaders. So that's why they haven't embraced just, adding in, 40 more people, because then there's just not going to be a standard there. But Leroy McCullough, I think a few people know him, coached the program before me, and he really is the one who started the small co-ed team, which was operating as a club. I actually cheered on that team for a couple years under him. And then when I took over, I just continued it. When it started with stunt, so one of the great things is that it can be a really affordable avenue to go. Especially if there's people in your region, then travel becomes very limited, because there's a lot of people you can play in your region. And, the jerseys that you wear, are not as expensive as some of those traditional cheer uniforms. So it really has some benefits. So I think the best thing to do is to be in touch with USA Cheer and ask them, hey, I'm really interested in possibly doing this next year. And then maybe you can get some exposure to some of the routines and have your team start learning those. Also, for new teams, it's not uncommon that we play modified games just so that they can get introduced to it. So there's actually now 8 routines per quarter. Yep, Ben's like, oh. But the nice thing is so we'll play a game where we know we're only going to play levels 1 through 4. So you have the game prepared. It makes it attainable. And the first time you play, you might absolutely stink, and that's okay, because playing the game itself is the best learning experience. You can practice for it all you want, but really getting out there and doing it is the best.
This is kind of towards Lauri, possibly stunt combine or anything in the Midwest in the near future. Is there any plans? Obviously, with the whole situation we're in right now, we don't know what types of conditions we're going to have, but kind of what areas do you kind of went over earlier, but kind of the areas you I've been in, and is there any thoughts on maybe expanding into a different area? Did we lose Lauri? Did we lose her? I think we just lost her.
Her computer died.
We may have lost her.
I think I'll just, I'll just speak that. I think that what they try to do is have a combine wherever there's some current stunt interest, especially at the high school level. So in Oklahoma, stunt has a state championship. California, stunt has a state championship. So I think that kind of drives it. And then the fact that there are some condensed college teams. So, but I thought that, didn't she not say there's one in Ohio?
There is.
And one, one in Michigan, maybe. And then I know there's one in Oklahoma. So I don't know where you're at in the Midwest, but it seems like that's maybe a drivable distance.
Just so everybody knows, Lauri's computer did die. She's grabbing her power cord right now. Hopefully we can get her back before we finish things up. Actually, another question
rookies.
Here. Rookies. Hey, I mean, she outdid us with the ladies are destroyed us in the background stuff. Like,
but notice that Lindsay has shifted her camera a little bit. So now
no, I was trying to hide the crap sitting on my futon in the back. I was like, oh man, you can see that.
This is from Brenda Jamerson. She's the coach at Butler University and is actually here from Indiana. Can you, maybe Lindsay knows this question, is there a regional map of some type for current high schools and or colleges that are competing in stunt currently?
So if you go to stuntthesport.org or collegestunt.org, I feel like I get it both ways. There's a list and a map of all the current colleges participating in it. So there's a ton in Michigan, so that kind of makes that doable. There's a couple in Missouri. So just kind of looking at proximity. High school, I don't know if a map exists, but I know New York has some schools. California, I think there's some schools in Alaska, so if you want to travel there. And then Oklahoma has some. Louis would answer that question better, but I can at least give you some idea.
Lindsay, there is on the Stunt the Sport website, there, if you go to the high school, you do a drop down, it does show all the states that have teams.
Cool.
Oh, Lauri, are you there? I can't hear you though. Cannot hear you for some reason. You're unmuted. It's weird.
Aaron Johnson, one of the Stunt the Sport officials, said that, there's combines happening in Texas and Oklahoma. So, yeah.
Okay, very
How about
cool.
now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, can hear you now.
No
worries.
Everything went out. But yes, we do have a list.
Show.
We have a list on our website of all of our states and all of our teams. And we have an interest form. So if you're interested in learning about it, just fill that out and we'll get you connected to other teams in your area. And I probably missed the combines, but the combines are listed there. We have Oklahoma and Texas, that's not really Midwest, is it? Ohio? I know I'm a West Coast girl, so anything past the West Coast, it's hard for me to.
Depends. Now it can be Northeast, it can be Midwest, it can be Southwest.
I know, that's why I get confused. The West never changes, though.
Lauri, another good question here. This is from Shayla. Are there any scholarship opportunities or funding associated with becoming a stunt program?
Yes, there are. So at the Division I and II level, there are scholarship opportunities. It's dependent upon each institution, but there is a base level that they would be required with Title IX and with their financial, like with the other sports. They're called equivalencies, and that's too complicated to talk about right here, but basically they have equivalency dollars of we recommend between 6 and 7 equivalencies for scholarship dollars for a program, and that's divided out depending upon how that university does that. D3, they don't have scholarships, so they have other means that they kind of work with, perks at their colleges or academic scholarships and so forth. But Division I and II, if you're a varsity program, then scholarship dollars would be available.
But those dollars are coming from the university, right? So it's a university decision. It's not Stunt does not provide the funding for that.
No, the universities. Yeah. Thank you.
This is from Keegan out in Arizona, just from Grand Canyon. Just would love to have a combine out in Arizona if you're ever interested. So just so you know, there you go. If anybody's ever wanting to go out to Arizona for that. As we wrap up here again, I just want to say how exciting this is for just all cheerleading athletes. I just am super excited about stunt being recommended, for a emerging sport status, which hopefully leads to becoming an NCAA sport. Before I let you go and we end things up, Lauri, any last words, anything that you want to talk about in regards to how we can, what is the near future for stunt, and what do you got to do?
Yeah, I would just say if you're contemplating it, I will echo what Lindsay and Ben said. It is work. It's a sport, and it's a lot on the coaches. But I also think that what they do, what I have seen, I have had the pleasure of being an official for high school and college. So I got a lot of interaction with the coaches, and in my recruiting as well, just talking to coaches throughout the past, 8 to 10 years about stunt. They love, it just is like a whole new level of coaching. The strategy like that Ben mentioned, and Lindsay about trying to figure out where to put her athletes, it's a whole different type of coaching. And so I would just encourage, it's not just here's a routine and go do it. It is a lot on the coach, because you have to make decisions of where your athletes are placed and what you're going to call, what you're going to do. But I have found that the coaches that's really kind of given them a new love for for coaching, and having that ability to have kind of more skin in the game, if you might say. And so I would say it's not going to be just just super easy and let's get started, and it's going to take work, but work will be very rewarding. And we have a huge network of coaches across the country, and our staff that are willing to help anybody get started and really work together. So I encourage people to give it a try, and I think that people would really, really, I know you guys already do so much, coaches do so much. And so that's why, again, maybe it's not for you particularly, but maybe there's another coach that wants to come up in the ranks and take their own program and kind of take that on. But just like something, being at those games, the last thing I'll say is that, winning, of course, everyone wants to win and so forth. But the cool thing about this is that the amount of games that I have been at, where what Lindsay had mentioned, they might have lost, but they won a certain point, or they hit a skill that they have been working on for 3 weeks and they have never hit, and they hit it in a game. And to see those athletes, just their, total pride and their joy, and just their excitement for that has been such a pleasure, and so rewarding to be a part of that and to share in that night. That's what I get from coaches too. They're like, I don't even care if we lost the game. She's been trying to hit that skill for 3 weeks, and she was amazing, and they were so proud of her for doing that. So those little wins along the way, which is so indicative of sports, right? Is you're not going to win every game and win every point. And so there's a lot of little mini wins in there, which I think makes this sport different and unique. And I just encourage everybody, it's not cheerleading, it's different. And so it's the sport version of cheer, and we're excited to see this is a historic moment for us to take this to the next level. And we're hoping, if you're watching, that you will join us and come and be a part of it.
Before I let you go, Lauri, I just want to plug to everybody that next Tuesday, so this upcoming Tuesday, Lauri is guest on Full Out Chats on Instagram. So we got to learn a lot about the stunt, the sport, but we get to learn about Lauri. Where does she come from? Where does she cheer at? What is her background? Very excited to have a one-on-one with Lauri. Again, that'll be on our Instagram at Full Out Chats next Tuesday. 1:00 Eastern, I will be having a one-on-one with Lauri to hear about her background and to find out her story. So very excited about that. Lindsay, before I let you go, kind of just last thoughts about, as a coach that's currently competing in stunt, kind of just the exciting news and what do you foresee taking the next steps for you and your program?
Yeah, well, it's awesome. It's been a long time coming, and the excitement that goes with it is great. And there's so many more questions to be answered, but the fact that we actually have the opportunity to ask those questions now is really exciting. If you are a coach out there, Mark alluded to, it does add some work, but it's worth it. I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it. And, like I said, the first year of stunt sucks. Practicing for stunt that first year is the worst thing ever. But stick it out, play a game. You'll end up loving it. Your kids will love it. There will be so much more buy-in, and it's going to be great.
Well, Lauri and Lindsay, I just want to thank you ladies again for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you again for the information about stunt and everything. Yes, for the ladies, thank you very much for joining us. And we will talk again soon. So again, Lindsay and Lauri joining us to talk about stunt. So guys, just kind of final thoughts in regards to, stunt with the emerging sport status and everything. Mark, I'll let you go first.
No, I thought it was some great information. I mean, I have some more questions I wanted to ask about budget things that I want to talk to Lindsay about, individually, but just to kind of see, but just the things that they're talking about, I think all of us played other sports other than cheerleading. And so I've been coaching my son's little leagues games, during the summers before COVID. And it's cool to compete on a regular basis, everything that we do now with cheerleading with builds towards nationals, it's all in one weekend, it's one or done. And so it would be cool to have a sport where, you could go and, like other sports, have a game. And if you don't have a good game, well, we got a game next weekend or we got another tournament, and it's not all or nothing. And that would be cool. And it would be, just to be competitive on a more consistent basis than just one weekend. So that's exciting for me, in addition to what I mentioned earlier about, just giving more athletes an opportunity to compete, which would be very appealing for me.
Schreiber.
I'm super excited about it. I can't wait to see what happens with it. It's one thing Lindsay briefly touched on that I would like to share is one of the really cool aspects about stunt is if you're in a cheer routine, a regular cheer routine, and you make a mistake, I mean, that most times will just be the end right there and your team's out of it. But the cool thing about stunt and other sports, if you make a mistake, you still have that opportunity with other rounds in the quarter and other quarters to try to make up those points. So I think that's super exciting. And, there is a long way to go before this hopefully gets full NCAA recognition and NCAA status at all the different divisions. But, I think that this was a huge first step. And I'm really excited to see what happens and hope that this thing takes off and, becomes a full-fledged NCAA sport at Division I, Division II, and Division III.
Tony Nash.
Yeah, I think Mark and Ben took all the answers, but, I do agree. I think that, having the opportunity or putting this new sport in the spotlight and to be able to show the athleticism that these kids actually have and just being able to potentially get that recognition from the NCAA, I think is really cool. I obviously have been with traditional cheer, throughout my career and have a definite fond love for that. But the intriguing part of this is it's new and, something that, do you want to tip your toes in and kind of figure out, how it works and what happens and just, something to try to go forward with. So
it'd be cool to compete for more than 2.5 minutes too.
Yeah, for sure.
The competition's lasts about an hour and
45 minutes.
Yeah. But that's way more excitement, 2.5 minutes, everything packed into it. It's always very exciting, but
right.
Then it's over, and there's so much buildup. It would be cool to participate in something where the excitement is extended.
The other cool thing about it, Mark, and Tony, is, if you're at a regular competition, sometimes you don't see every team. And parents, or fans might be watching like, well, I think they did better, but I don't know. When you're watching this live and, you have the full floor, formats, there's 2 white border strips and formats, you're seeing it happen at the exact same time. So unless everything is absolutely perfect, you're going to know who's going to win that round. And from my past, seeing fans, seeing cheer dads stand up and start pointing as the referee then would come out after the round when the judges give the signal and, give the signal of who earned the points. You see those fans doing that. And it really excites the athletes. It helps, get them, into the game even more, just like cheerleaders do for other athletes of other sports and fans do for other sports. So it's a really cool experience. It really is.
Tony, I'll just throw this out there. Maybe Purdue and IU all girl have a little exhibition. Just maybe have an exhibition get set up. That'd be a lot of fun, and maybe just garner some interest here within the state.
Perfect. We do it virtually.
Yes, we'll do it virtually.
on full out chats. Maybe all
Yeah.
we just have our own little screen.
As long as we get our cut from Cheer Chalk, we're good.
Right.
Well, I will say, guys, thank you. This was a lot of fun. And we do have our topics that we do want to talk about next week, just so people know. The USASF did make an announcement that they are going to extend another year of eligibility to those seniors affected that were not able to compete at Worlds and or Summit this year. So we're just going to talk about just the subject of super senior years and things like that. And then kind of the buzzword culture. What is it? What is our definition of it? What is the coach's mindset in regards to instilling a culture and its importance in a program? So those are our next week's subjects. Again, a special thank you to Lauri Harris and Lindsay Bracken for coming in to talk about stunt and its emerging sports status. Very excited about that. Again, I can't thank my good friends here enough. Mark, Tony, and Ben, thank you for joining me, guys. I appreciate it. And I'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks for having us.
Peace.
Thanks, Steve. We'll see you.
And there you go. That is our week of Coaches Corner. Again, awesome guests. Super excited for the future of cheerleading athletes. Have another avenue, possibly getting that NCAA status of an athlete, which would be great for scholarship opportunities. Just overall, the support that those athletes would get. And legit, you're competing possibly NCAA championship, which would be unbelievable for athletes and coaches and for schools and administrators everywhere. So again, I just want to thank everybody who joined us here tonight. All the live viewers, thank you very much. We do have a one-on-one tomorrow. Tomorrow on our Instagram, I will be interviewing Nicole Nichols, head cheer coach at the University of West Georgia. She is also the assistant all-girl coach for the U.S. national team. Very excited to talk to Nicole. I actually have never met her before, so this is going to be an awesome interview. This is an interview where I get to learn just as much as everybody else who has never met her or do not know anything. But West Georgia is a powerhouse program, an unbelievable co-ed and all-girl program. So very excited to talk to Nicole about her background, her story, and to talk about her rise to becoming the coach at the University of West Georgia and the assistant all-girl coach on the U.S. national team. So again, tomorrow on Full Out Chats Instagram, I'll be talking to Nicole. And of course, one more shout out again to our sponsor, Cheer Chalk. Go to cheerchalk.us. Again, cheerchalk.us. They have $5 off currently. Put in the discount code FULLOUT10 to get an additional 10% off. I was chatting with Lindsay. Her athletes at Oklahoma State have used it, have enjoyed using that product. And so same with my guys at Purdue. A couple of my guys have used it for open gyms and have really enjoyed the product and what it does to help them out, especially when it's really hot outside or they're sweating a lot. So again, special thank you to Cheer Chalk. Head on over to cheerchalk.us to get some Cheer Chalk and get 10% off by putting in the discount code FULLOUT10. That is our show. Thank you all very much. I hope you enjoyed. Have a great night, and I'll see you tomorrow when we talk with Nicole Nichols from the University of West Georgia. Have a great evening.